She was just a maid, quiet, unseen, invisible in the mansion she cleaned. But one night, when she saw a shadow moving across her boss's bedroom security camera, her heart nearly stopped. Her billionaire boss, Charles Whitmore, had just walked in through the front door. He smiled, heading upstairs, unaware of what waited for him. Naomi Brown froze. She ran to him, grabbed his arm, and whispered, "Sir, please, don't go in there. There's someone in your bedroom." He looked at her, confused. "What are you talking about?" But when he saw the fear in her eyes, he stopped. And that moment of silence, that single warning, uncovered a secret so dark, it would destroy everything he thought he knew about love. Before we go further, tell us where you're watching from. And hit subscribe, because this story will make your heart race and your jaw drop. Naomi Brown had worked for the Whitmore family for 3 years. Every morning, she woke before sunrise to scrub marble floors she'd never walk on as an equal. Every night, she cleaned rooms filled with the scent of wealth and silence. She was proud of her job, even if no one remembered her name. Her mother always told her, "Dignity isn't in what you earn, Naomi. It's in how you do what you do." So she worked hard, quietly, faithfully, for the man who owned half of Atlanta's skyline, and the woman who never looked her in the eye. Charles Whitmore was everything the news said he was. Handsome, powerful, admired. His wife, Vanessa, was grace and beauty wrapped in diamonds. To everyone else, they were the perfect couple. To Naomi, they were two strangers sharing a house too large to be called a home. But on that stormy Thursday night, everything changed. Charles returned early from a business trip. He'd forgotten his phone and decided to surprise his wife. Naomi was folding laundry in the servants' hallway when she heard the front doors open. "Evening, sir," she said politely. He nodded, distracted, already checking messages on his backup phone. "Is Mrs. Whitmore in bed?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Naomi replied, but something in her voice faltered. Because just seconds before, she'd noticed something strange. The security tablet she used to monitor the upper floor flickered. And for a split second, the camera outside the master bedroom showed movement. A figure slipping inside. Not Vanessa. Someone else. Her heart stopped. Naomi ran after him, calling softly, "Sir, wait." He turned at the staircase, confused. And that's when she raised a trembling hand to her lips. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Please, keep quiet. There's someone in your room." Charles froze mid-step, the weight of her words sinking like ice through his veins. He followed her eyes to the glowing security feed in her hands, and saw a shadow moving in his own bedroom. The hallway felt colder than it should have. Thunder rolled outside as Charles Whitmore froze halfway up the marble stairs, the glow of the security tablet trembling in Naomi's hands. A figure moved across his bedroom screen, tall, male, deliberate. Not a thief searching drawers. Someone who knew exactly where to go. Naomi whispered, barely breathing, "He's still in there." Charles's jaw tightened. For the first time in years, the man who commanded boardrooms and empires looked uncertain. "Call security," he mouthed. Naomi shook her head. "He'll hear us." Together they crept toward the small control room at the end of the corridor. Rain hammered the skylight above them as Charles scrolled through camera feeds. The intruder's face came into view, partially masked, dressed in black. Then the bedroom door on the feed opened wider, and another silhouette appeared behind him. A woman. Barefoot. Familiar. Naomi gasped softly. Charles blinked twice, unwilling to believe what the screen showed. His wife, Vanessa, was standing there, whispering something to the stranger. Then she reached out and touched his face. Every sound in the house disappeared. Charles slammed the monitor off and stormed down the hall, but Naomi grabbed his sleeve. "Please, sir, don't go alone." He hesitated only a second before pushing the door open. Lightning flashed through the balcony windows, throwing two startled faces into light. Vanessa gasped, her hand flying to her chest. The man beside her froze mid-step. "Charles," she started. "Don't," he cut her off. His voice wasn't loud, just sharp enough to slice the air. "Get away from him." The stranger moved as if to speak, but the household guards burst in behind them, weapons drawn. Within moments the man was pinned to the wall. Naomi stood in the doorway, heart pounding, watching the betrayal unfold. Under the harsh light, the intruder's mask came off. Naomi's breath caught. She recognized him, Ryan, the family's longtime driver. Charles stared as disbelief turned to fury. "How long?" Vanessa's eyes shimmered. "Charles, listen." "How long?" he thundered. Her voice cracked. "Weeks, maybe months." Naomi looked away, tears stinging her eyes for a man she barely knew. Charles exhaled slowly, pain breaking through the rage. "Get him out of my house." The guards dragged Ryan down the hallway. Vanessa tried to reach for her husband's arm, but he stepped back as if burned. "I built a kingdom for you," he whispered, "and you brought ruin into my own bed." Naomi turned to leave, but he stopped her. "Stay," he said softly. "You were the only honest one here tonight." When the police finished their work, the mansion fell eerily quiet. Naomi tidied shattered glass from the floor while Charles sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. "Thank you," he finally murmured. She shook her head. "You don't owe me thanks, sir." "I owe you the truth," he said. "If you hadn't stopped me, I would have walked in blind." He rubbed his eyes, exhausted. "You saved me from seeing it worse." Outside, dawn began to rise. Naomi looked at him, the man who had everything, now stripped of peace, and whispered, "Sometimes, sir, being saved doesn't feel like mercy. But it is." Charles nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the broken doorway. "You were right to tell me to be quiet, Naomi," he said at last, "because if I'd spoken a second sooner, the world would have heard me break." The camera pans out on the mansion as the sun touches the skyline, a symbol of truth, loss, and the courage of one woman who dared to speak when silence was safer. Morning light crept through the tall windows of the Whitmore mansion, cutting across the marble floors like truth spilling into places it was never meant to reach. The silence was heavy. Every clock tick felt like judgment. Naomi moved quietly through the hallway, cleaning the shards of last night's chaos, pieces of glass, a torn curtain, the faint outline of what used to be a perfect marriage. Downstairs, Charles sat at the dining table still dressed in yesterday's suit, untouched coffee cooling beside him. His phone buzzed non-stop, reporters, partners, investors, all demanding answers. He didn't move. Naomi hesitated by the doorway. "Sir, would you like some breakfast?" He looked up, eyes hollow. "I'm not sure I could swallow anything today." She nodded, setting the tray down anyway. "You should try, sir. You'll need your strength." Her voice was soft but steady, the only calm sound in a house that had lost its soul. By noon, the story was everywhere. Whitmore family scandal, billionaire's wife caught in affair with staff member. Drone footage of the mansion flashed across every channel. Naomi's phone buzzed with messages from friends who recognized her silhouette in the background of a police photo. She ignored them all. Inside the house, Vanessa's designer suitcases were stacked by the door. Security escorted her out while cameras clicked. She didn't look back. Charles watched from the top of the staircase, face expressionless, body rigid, like a monument carved by betrayal. When the door shut behind her, the entire mansion exhaled a soundless sigh. That evening, Naomi found Charles standing in his study surrounded by unopened emails and shattered confidence. He stared at a framed wedding photo on the shelf. "Do you know what the worst part is?" he said quietly. Naomi waited. "I thought I knew her. And maybe I never knew anyone at all." He laughed once, bitterly. "I built this empire for her. Everything she wanted. And she wanted someone else." Naomi spoke gently. "Sometimes people love what shines until they see who polishes it." He turned to her, surprised by the wisdom in her words. For the first time, He really looked at the woman who'd saved him, not as staff, but as someone whose calm had kept him from collapsing. "You don't have to stay through this," he said. "And leave you alone with all this dust," she replied. "Not my style." Days blurred into weeks. The mansion emptied of gossip and glitter. Naomi stayed, running errands, handling reporters, and keeping the household afloat. She never spoke about that night, never mentioned what she saw. But every morning, Charles would find the kitchen spotless, the papers neatly stacked, and a fresh cup of coffee waiting with a note that said simply, "Keep standing." It became their quiet ritual, her way of reminding him that life continued. One afternoon, Charles walked into the foyer where Naomi was polishing the railing. "You know," he said, "the world expects me to disappear for a while." She looked up. "Maybe that's not a bad thing." "And what would I do in the silence?" "Listen to it," she said. "It's where healing starts." Her calmness disarmed him. He realized that while he'd been fighting to control everything, she'd survived by accepting what she couldn't. That night, Charles quietly told his PR team to drop every lawsuit, every angry interview request. He didn't want revenge anymore. He wanted peace. And it started with the maid who had taught him how to breathe again. Weeks later, a reporter cornered Naomi outside the grocery store. "You're the woman who warned Mr. Whitmore, aren't you?" "The maid." She hesitated, then said simply, "I just did what was right." The next morning, headlines shifted. "The woman who spoke up." Public sympathy poured toward her courage, not the scandal. People called her brave. Charles called her something else, honest. That evening, he invited her to his office. "Naomi, I can't fix the past," he said, sliding a folder across the desk. Inside was a letter of promotion and a new position, head of household operations, with full benefits and a home on the property for her mother. Naomi's hands trembled. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll stay," he replied. "Then I'll stay." That night, as Naomi turned off the lights and headed for her small guest room, she passed the doorway to his study. Charles was sitting there, staring out into the rain. He didn't see her watching from the hallway. But when he whispered softly, "Thank you for seeing what I couldn't," she smiled, because for the first time since that terrible night, his voice no longer sounded broken. The storm that had shattered the Whitmore mansion had also revealed its only unshakable truth. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room carries the strength to save it. Just when the world started to move on, Vanessa Whitmore came back. No announcement. No warning. Just a single message sent to every news outlet. "I deserve to tell my side." Within hours, her interview went viral. She painted herself as the victim, a lonely wife, misunderstood, abandoned by a husband who cared more for business than love. And then she said the line that set the internet on fire. "That maid, she ruined my marriage." Naomi watched the broadcast from the foundation office. Her phone lit up again with hate comments. But this time she didn't cry. She just whispered to herself, "Truth doesn't need to shout." Charles saw the clip too. He turned off the screen, jaw tight. "She's turning the story into a weapon," he muttered. "Then let her," Naomi said quietly. "Weapons backfire when the target stays calm." He looked at her, realizing again how different her strength was, quiet but unshakable. The backlash was brutal. Sponsors pulled from Charles's companies. Stocks dipped. Reporters started camping outside the foundation instead of his home. One afternoon, a man from a rival firm approached Naomi in the parking lot. "You want all this to stop," he said. "Give us a statement that he knew about his wife's affair long ago. We'll pay." She stared at him in disbelief. "Truth isn't for sale." She walked away without another word. Later that night she told Charles what happened. He clenched his fists. "I'll handle it." "No," she said. "Let me. This is my fight too now." The next morning, Naomi held a short press briefing outside the foundation. No PR team, no rehearsed speech, just honesty. I'm not here to destroy anyone. I'm here because truth is heavy, and someone has to carry it. The clip spread across social media. For the first time, public opinion began to swing back toward compassion. Days later, Vanessa filed a lawsuit claiming emotional distress and defamation. The headlines screamed again. Charles's lawyers wanted Naomi to stay silent, but she refused. Silence feeds lies, she told them. When the first court hearing came, she stood beside Charles, not as an employee, but as a witness. Her testimony was calm, clear, and devastating. I saw fear on his face that night, she said to the judge. Not anger. Not pride. Just fear. The kind you feel when the life you built is burning down. The courtroom fell silent. Vanessa couldn't meet her eyes. By the time the hearing ended, the case had begun to crumble. She withdrew the claim within a week. Months passed. The noise faded. The foundation flourished. Families came for help. Workers found protection. Naomi's name became synonymous with integrity. Charles visited the office often, not to oversee, just to sit, talk, and listen. He had changed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by humility. One evening, as they closed up, he said, "You know, the night you stopped me on the stairs, that was the worst and best moment of my life." She smiled faintly. "Because you lost everything. Because I found truth. And people who live by it." He paused. "I don't know what I'd have done without you. You'd have survived," she said. "But now you're living." A year later, on the anniversary of the foundation, the city mayor invited them both to a ceremony honoring community leaders. Cameras flashed again, but this time, not in scandal. In gratitude. Naomi stood on stage beside Charles as the mayor spoke. This award recognizes those who turned pain into purpose. When it was her turn to speak, Naomi said only one sentence. "You don't need wealth to make history. You just need courage when it's hardest to speak." Applause filled the hall. Afterward, as dawn began to rise over the skyline, Charles looked at her and said, "You know, I used to think strength was loud." She smiled. Sometimes, the strongest thing in the world is a whisper. They stood together watching the city wake, two people who had walked through scandal, silence, and storms, now standing in the quiet peace of truth.